Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Co-Angler's Corner brought to you by Olson Home Theater. I'm Russell Olson. Today on this show what I'd like to talk about is that situation where the guy in the front of the boat is just getting bite after bite after bite after bite, and you just cannot get a bite to save your life no matter what you do. You may be using the same style bait as the guy in the front of the boat, and you might even be using what you believe is the same retrieve and presentation, but still, you're just not getting bit. I had a situation up in Sturgeon Bay a little over a month ago in a tournament where just that. My boater was getting all kinds of bites. I wasn't getting anything. And I was using the same bait the day before where I was getting my bites on. So, I mean, that's, especially in a 2-day tournament like that, that's even more puzzling. So, and it's really easy just to totally lose focus. First thing, you want to do, just don't get frustrated. This is something I know I struggle with personally. You get frustrated, next thing you know, you're losing focus, your presentation just isn't as sharp, and it just spirals downhill from there. I know one thing, a quick fix that may help you get bites. Take advantage of the angle that you're able to present at that maybe your boater is not able to. Obviously, let's just say your boater's casting, to the left, and he's, bringing it back down. Obviously, you can cast the other way, opposite way, and bring it back, the opposite way. Fish, may want it in a different direction. Simple fix. If that doesn't do it, you may need to, especially if you're getting frustrated, you may need to sit down for a minute, maybe have a bite to eat, just take a little time, think of what you need to do next. Just start going through a thought process of what you can do differently and, figure out how you're going to implement that. The biggest thing I know a lot of anglers say to do on TV and magazines, they all say, try something totally different. So, for example, let's just say your boater is using a drop shot, which is kind of a finesse technique. You could go to something that's going to get more of what's called a reaction bite, something that moves a lot faster, like, say, a spinnerbait, crankbait, top water that you can retrieve quickly. Something just totally different from what your boater's doing. Now, number one thing, though, if you're going to do that, make sure that you're using something that you have total confidence in for the type of the cover, weather conditions, with your fishing weeds, just use whatever that you feel just total confidence in for the situation that you're in. If you don't do that, it's not going to work. You're going to start, again, losing focus, not using a sharper presentation. It's just not going to work. If you're in a situation where you just know that bait that boater's using, that style of bait is exactly what you need to do, then you're going to have to figure out what's happening, why you're not getting bites, do something totally different. It may be just a color change. Start observing what your boater's doing. The color bait, size of bait, like in the case of a jerk bait or crankbait, the depth it's running. Just start looking for the little details and just kind of look over, see how he's retrieving it, and maybe try again to mimic that. Some cases that'll work, some cases, it won't. And if it's not working, start trying different things. You may need to make a color change. You may need to, change your retrieve. Maybe your bait works a little bit better at a faster or slower retrieve. You can even try, even changing your line size. Maybe you're using, too big a line size. Just, you got to start trying different things. Try to see what's going to trigger bites for you. Now, what I want to do now is get into our spotlight bait, which is a hard jerk bait. There's hard and soft jerk baits. This one happens to be a hard one. Now, this particular one was what I was catching fish on day one up on Sturgeon Bay. Caught my last keeper on a tube, but all my other fish, I caught one fish on a single. I don't remember if it was a keeper or not. But 90% of my fish were all caught on this one on day one. Jerk baits, the ones you want are ones that suspend. Now, this one is a pretty shallow diver. Some of them dive deeper. There's various sizes, different manufacturers. Some of the ones I know a lot of my guys like are the Megabass and the Lucky Craft. They can get pretty pricey. Some of them I've seen, like some of the Megabass and the Lucky Crafts can get $20, $25 or more. And like basically there is a quality difference, but in some cases, obviously you don't necessarily need a $25 bait to catch fish. But some of those higher quality baits, obviously that does help. Now, with these baits, for line, I like to use anywhere from 8 to 10 pound line with my jerk baits, crank baits, any type of bait like this that's got a bill on it to dive. That's what I generally like to try to stick with. Especially crankbaits. That's usually where you're going to get your best, your maximum depth, that 8 to 10 pound range. The favorite time of year I like to use these is usually, and my biggest success with them has been in the springtime. I've had good success in the fall. You can really use them any time of the year. For jerk baits, I do like Clearwater. That's where I would prefer to use them. But again, for seasons, usually spring or fall, like I said, I've had better success in the spring. Colors I like, depending on how clear the water is. Like so this one is pretty clear, but there is basically a pattern. Most manufacturers call it like a sexy shad. This pattern, actually, this one was made before they started calling it sexy shad. But this one is it's actually pretty clear. You're really good for ultra clear water, like I faced up in Sturgeon Bay, a couple weeks ago. One thing I'm a big believer in, not just with hard jerk baits, but any type of hard bait, or even soft jerk baits. Any bait, I'm trying to imitate some sort of bait fish. This red hook in the front of it. And now a lot of manufacturers do make jerk baits with red hooks on them. They usually put red hooks, all the way through, whether 2 or 3. From what I've seen, a lot of them make it with all the hooks being red. The reason I like the red hook in the front, to me, it's a confidence thing, because I believe it imitates either the gills of a bait fish, or like they call bleeding bait. Make it look like the bait's injured. Make it seem like it's going to be an easy meal for the bass. I'd say 90 to 95% of the time, this red hook is going to be in the front. Up in Sturgeon Bay, I only had one fish that only had this back hook in its mouth. All the other times, this red hook was actually in the mouth, and this was securing it. Now, one thing I learned the hard way up in Sturgeon about a month ago: do not try to swing a fish in on treble hooks. Just don't do it. It cost me probably a good 2-3 pounds of weight that weekend because I did that. I won't be doing that again. But it's definitely a great bait to use, especially in Clearwater. Now, I generally stick with shad patterns. Usually, there's various shad patterns. Some of them have kind of what they call rainbow color that has a little bit of chartreuse and they call it either rainbow or clown color. I've heard it called. But it depends if I'm trying to imitate something other than a shad, that'll, kind of dictate that for me as well. But this is generally something I try to use to match the hatch. Now, the situation I ran into up in Sturgeon Bay, the weekend I was up there, I was using this bait day one. It caught most of my fish. I had one fish on a tube. I think I had a couple dinks on a Senko, but other than that, about 90% of my fish was caught on this on day one. Went into day two, was using this, couldn't get bit, and then I did what I was talking about earlier. Started asking my boater, "What color are you using?" I was noticing the retrieve that he was using. He was kind of using kind of a sweeping jerk, is the way I can describe it. It was like, and I was doing that, still couldn't get bit. When I asked him about what color he was using, I noticed that it wasn't really super translucent. It was kind of silver with some blue in it. Well, then I went to this bait right here. This particular one's made by Yo-Zuri. Then I, still went with the same retrieve. Really wasn't getting anything. But then I started speeding up my retrieve. Boom, 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 like that. And then, lo and behold, I started getting bites. I started getting bite after bite after bite after bite for a while. Had a lot of dinks, but caught about 4 keepers on it, and started to have some success there. So that's what I mean. Don't be afraid to experiment. You got to keep your mind open, because some other differences. My boater was using a jerk bait by a company called Megabass. It was a little bit bigger than this. I think the bill might have been a little bit bigger, if I remember right. Might have went a little deeper. So I didn't have any of those, so I had to use something as close as I could. But when I don't know if I would have stayed with this color, if the retrieval would have made the difference. I don't know. I didn't put this one back on and try it. But those subtle changes really made a difference in my weekend. Oh, by the way, one other thing I almost forgot to mention too. Some of these, let's just say you're in a situation like this where you didn't happen to have a red hook on the bait, but you really, really want that red hook. I have some marker pens by a company called Spike It. They make the dyes you can dip your baits in and give it a chartreuse color or whatever. They have pens. They have like a pen assortment. I think it's red, blue, orange, and chartreuse. I had the red one on me, so I just took and colored the hook. Give it a good coating. Till it really till that it's a darker red, but till that darker red really shine through. And nice thing about those, they got some garlic scent, which might have helped as well. But that's something you can do if you happen to have a bait you want to use. Pardon me. Bait you want to use, but you don't have a red hook on the front and really don't want to take the time to change it out. That's one thing you can do. So that's some things you can do if you're in a situation like that where you just can't get a bite to save your life. I hope this helps you on the water. That's really I wanted to discuss this episode. Also, I want to mention that one of my sponsors, Frugal Moose Books, you can get 10% off if you mention Co-Anglers Corner. And also, if you'd like to get paid when people pay their bills, feel free to email me at olsonhometheater@gmail.com, and I will personally send you back information on that. Feel free to contact me anytime. That's it for this episode. I wish you all luck from the back of the boat, and have a great day.